You've probably seen this video somewhere. On stage, Boney M, four dazzling figures led by Bobby Farrell, a whirlwind of energy. The crowd roars. The bass of Daddy Cool thumps, a heartbeat for a generation. Everyone sings along, but listen closer. That deep, commanding voice, it isn't Bobby's, not a single note. The real voice belongs to a man behind the curtain, a producer pulling the strings. This was the work of Frank Farian, the architect of a pop illusion. Before he was the puppet master, Frank Farian was just another musician trying to make it. Born Franz Ruther in Germany, he started out with dreams of being a rock and roll star. He was a singer, he had a band, he put out records under the name Frankie Farian. He had the ambition, he had the drive. But the world wasn't exactly lining up to listen. The hits just weren't coming. It's a story we've heard 1,000 times in the music business. Talent and passion don't always equal success. He was a trained cook, a profession he might have returned to if things didn't change. He was facing the harsh reality that his voice, his face, wasn't going to be the one on the album cover. So, he pivoted. If he couldn't be the star, he would create them. He moved from the microphone to the mixing board. This is where he found his true calling. Farian had an ear, a golden ear. He knew what a hit sounded like. He could dissect a song, find its hook, and polish it until it was irresistible. In 1974, he was messing around in a studio in Offenbach. He recorded a strange, catchy track called Baby Do You Wanna Bump. He released it under a pseudonym Boney M. He didn't want to attach his own name to it. It was an experiment. To his shock, the song started to gain traction. It became a hit in the Netherlands and Belgium. Suddenly, television shows wanted to book this mysterious group, Boney M. But there was a problem. There was no group. There was only Frank Farian, alone in his studio. He couldn't go on TV by himself. He needed a band. He needed faces. So he went looking. He recruited singers Liz Mitchell and Marcia Barrett, who had genuine vocal talent. He found a model, Maisie Williams. And for the frontman, he found an Aruba-born dancer named Bobby Farrell. They were the perfect package. Visually stunning. Full of energy. They looked like superstars. Farian had stumbled upon his magic formula. He would be the wizard behind the curtain. He would write the songs. He would produce the music. And he would sing the deep male vocals himself, blending them with the powerful voices of Liz Mitchell and Marcia Barrett. Maisie and Bobby would be the visual focus, the performers who brought the music to life on stage and in videos. It was a division of labor that, from a business perspective, was ruthlessly efficient. He controlled the sound completely. He just needed a cast to play the parts. And in Boney M, he had found his perfect ensemble cast for the first act of his grand production. With the lineup in place, the Boney M machine kicked into high gear. Farian wasted no time. He went back to the studio and started churning out hits. The sound was a unique blend. It was disco, but it had a Caribbean flavor. It had pop hooks you couldn't forget. And it had that unmistakable Farian production, slick, polished, and massive. The first big one was Daddy Cool. It was a monster. The song climbed the charts all over Europe in 1976. It was simple, hypnotic, and utterly infectious. People heard it once and couldn't get it out of their heads. The world was officially introduced to the Boney M phenomenon. Then came the tidal wave. Sunny, Ma Baker, Belfast. The hits just kept coming, each one seemed bigger than the last. But the real game changer was Rivers of Babylon. The song was a reworking of a traditional Rastafarian hymn. Farian gave it the full pop disco treatment. The result was pure magic. It became one of the biggest selling singles of all time in the UK. It was everywhere, on the radio, in the clubs, at every family party. Boney M wasn't just a pop group anymore. They were a cultural force. They dominated the European charts in a way that few artists ever have. They were the sound of the late 70s. Behind the scenes, though, the perfect disco machine was showing signs of stress. The secret at the heart of the group was a source of constant tension. As the disco era faded, so did Boney M's chart dominance. But Frank Farian was not done. He had a blueprint for success, and he was ready to use it again. This time, he would make it even bigger, more polished, more audacious. The 1980s were all about image. MTV had changed the game. Music was now visual. You needed a look, you needed a style, you needed stars who looked incredible on camera. The music, in some ways, was secondary to the package. Farian understood this better than anyone. He was already composing new tracks in his German studio, crafting a sound for the next decade, a blend of pop, R&B, and dance. He found his new frontmen by chance, Rob Pilatus and Fab Morvan. They were two young ambitious dancers in the Munich club scene. Rob was a model, Fab was a musician. They had the look. They had long, flowing hair, chiseled features, and a unique athletic style of dancing. They were hungry for fame. They wanted to be stars more than anything. They met Farian, who saw their potential immediately. They were the perfect vessels. He played them a demo of a song he had already recorded called "Girl, You Know It's True." The vocals were already done, sung by professional studio singers like Charles Shaw, John Davis, and Brad Howell. Farian laid out the deal. It was simple, and it was a deal with the devil. He would make them superstars. They would be the faces of a new group, Milli Vanilli. They would grace the album covers. They would star in the music videos. They would tour the world. All they had to do was lip sync. Just move their mouths to the words, sung by other people. The rise of Milli Vanilli was meteoric. It was a pop explosion. After the success of Girl You Know It's True, the hits came one after another. Baby Don't Forget My Number, Blame It on the Rain, Girl I'm Gonna Miss You. Each song was a perfectly crafted piece of pop music, and each one shot to the top of the charts. Their debut album sold millions upon millions of copies worldwide. In the United States, they were a phenomenon. They were on the cover of every teen magazine. Their videos were in constant rotation on MTV. Rob and Fab were living the dream. They were global superstars. They were everywhere. They toured relentlessly, playing to sold-out arenas of screaming fans. The illusion was flawless. Their stage shows were high-energy spectacles full of synchronized dance moves and charismatic stage presence. They looked the part, they acted the part, they became the part. But the bigger they got, the more pressure they were under to maintain the lie. In interviews, they would talk about their musical influences and their creative process, weaving elaborate stories to cover the truth. They were actors playing the roles of their lives, and the whole world was their audience. The lie had become their reality. The pinnacle of their success came in February 1990.
And the best new artist is Milli Vanilli.
At the 32nd Annual Grammy Awards, Milli Vanilli won the award for Best New Artist. It was a moment of ultimate triumph and ultimate deception. There they were, on stage, accepting the music industry's highest honor for a performance that was not their own. They held the golden gramophones, symbols of musical achievement, while the real singers remained anonymous. This was Farian's formula taken to its absolute extreme. He hadn't just created a hit group, he had created Grammy-winning artists who had never sung a note on their records. It was a breathtakingly bold move, but even at their peak, cracks were beginning to show. Suspicions were growing. During a live performance on MTV, the backing track for Girl You Know It's True began to skip. Rob and Fab didn't know what to do, so they ran off stage. The incident was explained away as a technical glitch, but it planted a seed of doubt. The pressure was becoming unbearable. Rob and Fab were trapped in their own success. They were rich and famous, but they were also living a lie that was eating them alive. He and Fab were also pushing Frank Farian harder than ever. They wanted to sing on the next album. They were tired of being puppets. They threatened to expose the truth themselves if Farian didn't let them use their own voices. They were playing a dangerous game of chicken with the man who had created them. So Farian decided to get ahead of the story. He called a press conference on November 15, 1990. He, not Rob and Fab, would be the one to tell the world the truth. In a stunning admission, he announced that the duo had not sung on any of their records. He revealed that he had hired them for their looks and had used session vocalists for the music. The bomb had dropped. The biggest scandal in modern pop music history had just broken wide open. The fallout was immediate and brutal. 4 days later, the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences did something it had never done before. It revoked Milli Vanilli's Grammy for Best New Artist. The public felt betrayed. The fans who had bought the records and screamed at the concerts felt like they had been tricked. The media went into a frenzy. Milli Vanilli became a running joke, the ultimate symbol of manufactured pop phoniness. The backlash was swift and merciless. Lawsuits were filed. Class action suits were organized on behalf of fans who wanted their money back for the albums and concert tickets. In a desperate attempt to reclaim their careers and dignity, Rob and Fab held their own press conference. It was a surreal and chaotic event. Surrounded by a horde of reporters, they tried to prove that they could, in fact, sing. They sang and rapped a cappella for the cameras, but it was too little, too late. The performance was shaky, and the media was not convinced. Instead of sympathy, they were met with more ridicule. Their attempt to show their real talent backfired, turning the tragic situation into a public spectacle. Their fall from grace was as dramatic and as fast as their rise. The dream was officially a nightmare. The aftermath of the scandal was devastating, especially for Rob Pilatus. He never recovered from the public humiliation. He struggled with substance abuse and had several run-ins with the law. He tried to launch a comeback with Fab, releasing an album under the name Rob and Fab, but it failed completely. The shadow of Milli Vanilli was too large to escape. Tragically, in 1998, on the eve of a promotional tour for a new Milli Vanilli album that was to feature his and Fab's real voices, Rob Pilatus died from an accidental drug overdose. He was only 32. His story is a heartbreaking cautionary tale about the human cost of fame built on a lie. Fab Morvan, on the other hand, has spent decades trying to rebuild his life and career. He has worked as a solo artist, a DJ, and a public speaker, patiently working to prove his own musical talent. He has spoken openly about the manipulation and pressure they faced from Farian. While the world remembers Milli Vanilli as a joke, Fab has fought to be seen as a survivor, an artist who was caught in a machine he couldn't control. His journey has been one of perseverance, a long road to reclaim his own voice and identity from the wreckage of the scandal. He continues to perform, determined to have the last word in his own story. And what of the architect, Frank Farian? The scandal barely slowed him down. He went on to create other successful Eurodance groups like La Bouche and Le Click. So, how should history remember Frank Farian? Was he a deceptive charlatan who exploited young performers and duped the public? Or was he a brilliant producer, a pop genius who understood the art of illusion in show business better than anyone else? The truth, as always, is probably somewhere in the middle. He created some of the most memorable pop and disco anthems of all time. His music brought joy to millions. But he did it through a level of artifice that crossed a line for many. His career forces us to ask a fundamental question. In the world of pop music, where does entertainment end and deception begin? It's a line that continues to be blurred to this day.